Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Please do not attack any of the cast members of this show or any of the other shows. And if you see people being bullied, cast members, by the internet, by the mob, even if you don't know if the cast member is looking at that Reddit thread or something, I hope that you, one, don't participate, and two, you might even want to say, hey, let's take it easy. These are humans. Let's watch.
And get back. And I was like, okay, yeah. I was like, we're still like engaged.
Have you seen her in Denver?
Not one-on-one, dude. So,
You didn't see her one-on-one in there?
Dude, I get back to Denver. She texts me. She's like, says all this thing like she didn't want to do the show anymore, and it was like too much for her. But it's not about the show.
Okay, first off, I feel like I chose the right attire for this segment of the show. And we're hearing from Patrick. He showed up at the all-cast party, and he is giving an update. He sounds a little astonished that Casey wasn't willing to talk. I think that's what Patrick is saying. We've heard from Patrick and Casey in today's time, a year or year and a half later. I say year and a half because there were tulips, and that's usually like a spring thing, right? I'm not sure. So I don't know, but he is giving an update to people. And, this would be just days after he got dumped. So it would be fresh, and he would want to talk about it. And he might not even be able to talk about it with very many people. Obviously, he can't share it online because of spoiling things, but he might have only been able to talk to a few people, like close family.
You guys aren't even on the No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And I was like, well, what are you doing tomorrow, And she just basically just kept telling me that she wasn't ready to see me, and I was like, can I just call you because I want to talk this out,
Yeah.
And she wouldn't even call me or anything.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world, right? But at the very least, you could say it's not very polite to just break. Now, she gave a lot of affection and sorrow and physical affection when she broke up in person. She didn't break up, though. I actually talked with my contact on the show. Let me actually go to what she said. So first off, I should say that I know that my contact on the show isn't in every interaction. She is in some interactions with the cast, and she will hear things or she'll see tape or audio of things that are happening. So she's not central in every conversation with every cast member. How could she be? But from what she's saying, and also I am not going to reveal where she is in the crew because then that would reveal who she is. I mean, it's not a big deal to her, but she just prefer to remain anonymous. So keeping all that in mind, she tells me that for Casey, after the hallway, immediately Casey was talking with her. So if you don't know, I've talked about this before. My contact on the show told me that each cast member has a set of people that are tending to them. And when you see those one-on-one interviews, they tend to be talking to the same person, which would make sense, right? You would have a person that knows the cast member feels comfortable with that person. But since there's so many cast members, there's a lot of those people. And then those people have assistants and other kinds of people. When they're at the getaway, each couple has its own crew, its own camera people, its own sound people, its own producers, its own note takers, its own gophers, because and those people follow around. There's about something like 5 to 8 people that are following around each couple. But in the pods, I think that each individual has at least 1 or 2 people that are keeping track of literally everything that they say. They have a live feed, and they're keeping notes because, one, they need to monitor things just in case something gets a little wonky. But also, it helps later for editors to have notes as to what happened, sort of the topic sentence of what happened in that interaction or in that half hour or something, so that the editors can go back. Plus, the head honcho that is running the whole thing, he needs to know what's happening just to plan and this sort of, anyway. So what she's telling me is that Casey, after the hallway, she goes to her people and immediately says, it's not going to work. I don't, or she said, so let me read what she said here. She says that she didn't believe the physical attraction would grow. So right away, not at the hotel, right away. And she says, yeah, I don't think physical attraction is there, and I know physical attraction isn't there, and I do not think it's going to grow. And according to my contact, she said that there was a conversation with production with her person, right? And that person might have suggested, hey, well, you might want to tell him because you don't want to string him along if this isn't going to work, right? And that's interesting because you would imagine that production would try to pressure her to move forward because it's more content, right? But according to my contact, the producer was saying, well, you might want to nip it in the bud now because you don't want to string Patrick along. So, given what my contact is saying, I wonder if that producer might have made a mistake because what if the producer said, and I don't know, maybe it was a long conversation, said something like, well, how would you know? It's the hallway scene. Things get awkward there. Do you want to give it a try moving forward? And I'm guessing it was a long conversation, but that's what my contact is saying. And then she did ultimately decide that she was going to break up because of that reason. And with the producers off camera, they were having those conversations. Then we see in the edit, she's having that conversation in the hotel, I think maybe later that night, I'm guessing. And, or let's see, I forget exactly, but it's in that interim period of time after the hallway and before they fly to the getaway. There's a few days there. And I sometimes they fly at the beginning of the few days, sometimes they fly at the end. I don't know. Anyway, so what she's saying is at some point, she is telling the producers on camera, and we see that, and then she talks to Patrick and completely flubs the whole thing because I'm guessing she just doesn't want to hurt him, and she doesn't want to appear racist, and she doesn't want to give him a complex about being Asian American, and it just sort of put a wrench in her gears, and she just got ground to a halt. Is that a way of saying her gears grounded to a halt? Anyway, it mucked up her system, and she just couldn't get it out. That's not uncommon. It's not great. In the typical world, there would be multiple conversations. If you've ever broken up with someone, I would like to think that you hesitated about it. I mean, unless it was a horrific person, but usually they aren't, right? You don't want to hurt their feelings. Even if you really want to break up with them, even if you really don't want to ever see them, you don't even want to be friends with them, I would just, most people, and some people, it can become pathological in that they will wait 5, 10. I've worked with clients who wanted to break up 20 years earlier and have just gone into denial and put it off. But when they really think about it, they're like, yeah, I haven't wanted to be in this relationship for decades, or at the very least a few years or something. It's not great. It's fairly common though, and it's it causes a lot of suffering. Anyway, so she hesitated, and she was so sorry, and she liked him, but didn't think that it would grow, and there you go. It's a weird situation, though, when I think about it, because the way it looked was that she had absolute physical chemistry in the hallway while breaking up with him. But, looks can be deceiving, and, she can make that choice. It's fine. She wasn't into it. It was unfortunate. And then he isn't, so the other thing that my contact says is that, producers are encouraged to stay neutral and not make them say or do anything they don't want to do. So the producers are watching the breakup scene with Patrick and Casey, and the producers are thinking, she didn't break up with him. But the producers are encouraged by the upper admin, the showrunners and people, because they're not there. They might not even be in the town. The people in charge might be doing other things. So the people that are, doing the grunt work, if you will, are pretty low on the ladder, and they are told by their managers to not suggest very strongly or not influence, right? Just kind of let things happen. So if Casey didn't break up with him, and then the producers go to her and say, what do you want to do? And she's like, I just want to go home. Okay, she can go home. And it's not producer's place to say, don't you think you should maybe talk with him and actually break up with him or send him a note or something? Producers aren't encouraged to do that. I would rather have that than the alternative, which is them, shoehorning people into doing things, pressuring or trying to mold situations. So that's that. And now Patrick is filling us in. We heard Casey and Patrick on the Vile Files talk about their memory of this time, which would be pretty garbled, right? And Casey was basically saying that she was open to meeting up with Patrick and he just refused. And then Patrick was saying the opposite. I'm going to take a guess, given what we're hearing right after, because our people's memories right after are more reliable, and it makes sense given what we saw, that she just didn't want to string him along, and also, which is a good thing, but also was avoiding and didn't want to face it, which is understandable, but again, not polite. It certainly isn't any reason for her to get death threats or any criticism by the mob. I would just love any individual mob member against her if we could just, look in a crystal ball and look in their history if they've ever done anything along those lines. I'm guessing that they have. Maybe that's even why they're doing it, because they have shame and they're attacking her. I don't know. But, now we're seeing this. Oh, I reread the paragraph that my contact said, and this is an important clarification. So what she's saying is before she left to go to the hotel, so after the hallway, she's still in the warehouse where they film everything. She was already telling her producer that she didn't want to continue. So the way it sounds is that she's saying, I don't want to go forward. I don't want to be on the show anymore. I just don't want to move forward. And then producers are saying, why? And then you could imagine that she would be hesitant. Well, one, that she doesn't want to continue being in a relationship with him, and two, that she's not attracted to him, right? For all the reasons I talked about. And then, but producers like, well, what's going on? And then she says, well, I don't think a physical attraction, I know a physical attraction isn't there, and I don't think it'll grow. Then at that point, they said, well, then you probably should break it off with Patrick. So that's important, because earlier I said that the producers were kind of influencing things, but it's important that she was saying, producers, I want off the show. I don't want to do this anymore. And then they asked her why. She said, no attraction. Then they suggested, well, then you should not just leave the show only, but also you should break up with Patrick. So, well, that's interesting. So from that, it sounds like Casey was on the verge of ghosting, which I can imagine, given the whole scenario, the way that it played out, right? Now, what Casey will say today is it's no big deal because Patrick was in love with Anna. So, what's the no harm, no foul, right? But that's nonsense because we don't know. We'll never know. Was Patrick still in love with Anna? I don't think so. Was Patrick super invested in Casey? I think a lot of people would say probably not as much as other people, but maybe. We've seen that before. Kwame is still with Chelsea. Kwame was really into Micah, and late in the 10 days, she broke up with him. He was devastated. He's crying. She was super callous about it and didn't seem to appreciate the situation at all. Then he went to his number two, and I remember thinking, well, he's not into her, but they're still married today. So as far as I know. Anyway, so we don't know. But yeah, so that's interesting. I hadn't really pieced that together, that there was a chance that Casey was... I don't want to accuse Casey of anything. We don't know. But you can imagine. And I think it points in a direction that she has a tendency to avoid and stick her head in the sand. And that can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing.
Didn't even take a phone call with
She
you?
swear. And she's like, well, just tell everyone we're broken up for now and that we need to talk still. And I'm like, what?
Won't even talk.
Okay, so what Patrick is saying is that in their text or phone call, or I think just text, that she is, before having actually broken up with him, she's saying, well, just tell everyone that we're broken up and we'll talk later. Maybe, tell producers or something like that. And it sounds like that's when he figured out, wait, so we're breaking up? Let's rewind that.
She just basically just kept telling me that she wasn't ready to see me. And I was like, can I just call you? Because I want to talk.
Right. So imagine you're Patrick and you're leaving the breakup conversation and she just doesn't want to be on the show anymore. She doesn't want to go on the getaway. And she's like all over you. And you're amazing, and I love you. Did they say love? I can't remember, but all that, and all he's hearing is, well, our engagement is still on, or at least our relationship is still on, and we're just not going to go on the show. And then you get this communication, right? And he's like, "Do you want to talk on the phone?" And she's like, "No." You're like, "Why? We're both off the show. Why can't we just talk on the phone? What's happening?"
To talk this out,
Yeah.
And she wouldn't even call me or anything. And
Oh my God. Really? Wouldn't even take a phone call with
she
you?
swear. And she's like, well, just tell everyone we're broken up for now and that we need to talk still. And I'm like, what?
Won't even talk.
This is one day. This is one day. Like literally one day.
Interesting. So one day. Wow. Yeah. So just imagine how that would feel if you're Patrick. Just the rug being pulled out from underneath you. You might have even told people that you're engaged, right? You get your phone back. It's been 24 hours. There's plenty of time to say, oh my God, there's something kind of weird happening, but I'm engaged. I'm in love. We're in love with each other. This is great. I mean, humiliation is just part of the downside of getting dumped. But yeah, I'm guessing a lot of people would say, well, maybe he's not that devastated, but I don't know. I think it's a mistake to assume that because we don't see Patrick breaking down crying, we don't even know, maybe he did, but because we don't see that, then we think, well, he's just kind of a dude bro and he'll bounce back. He's fine. He doesn't really care. He's not that invested. We have no idea. When it comes to guys like this, really people like this, who have this kind of demeanor, this kind of not wearing your heart on your sleeve, whatever the opposite of that is, avoidance or bottled up or just private about your feelings, then to assume that they don't is actually to dehumanize someone. It is, just imagine what it would feel like. Now, for audience members, including myself, it's hard to really feel the intensity of it because things are happening so quick, and it's hard for us to imagine that falling that in love with someone over such a short amount of time. But we know that people do. So just think like you're in love, you're engaged, and you're in a relationship for, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, and it's going fast, and you're just like, you see your future, and then all of a sudden they're just like, I don't want to talk to you. And, oh, by the way, just tell everyone that we're broken up. What's happening right now? Now, what people will say is she got cold feet and she ran to that guy. And it's possible. I talked about this with Trevor a few seasons ago, that it would make sense that after a difficult emotional period of time that you would run to your comfort people. And I think this guy is a part of that. We don't know. I think she said, though, in her interview with the Vile Files that she was no longer involved with that guy, but who knows? But even if she was with that guy, it doesn't mean that she wasn't into Patrick or willing to give it a try. We don't know what it means exactly, but yeah. So, And actually, Stacy told me something about the way it seemed to her about Casey and that guy, and of course she doesn't know and we don't know, but the way that it seemed, the way that Casey was talking about it, it seemed to Stacy that Casey was wanting to be with him exclusively and forever. But he was not wanting to do that. He wasn't willing to do it with her, or he wasn't willing to commit to anyone really. And she was just kind of Casey was maybe putting up with being a side piece or not treated that seriously or something, and she was just waiting and waiting and waiting, And that's that on and off again sort of thing, and that compulsion to be with him, but at the same time, like kind of resenting it. So, that's I don't know what it has to do with this situation, but I just thought I'd mention that.
I was
she's totally gaslighting you on the whole thing.
I was just like, okay, well, I was like, sure, I'll just tell you guys, I'll just tell the guys we're all broken up, Bro, I asked for the ring back, and she basically stopped talking to me. She said, she was like, I asked her for the ring back, and she was like, no, you act like you're the only one that's hurt in this situation. I'm going to keep the ring.
Oh my gosh.
And that was her last.
Wow. What? I mean, do we not believe Patrick? Again, this is days afterwards. Does Patrick seem like the kind of guy that would just make something like that up? Now, is there spin? Probably. But the topic sentence being accurate seems possible. So I have learned that I'm only 80% sure of this, that the guys will get $5,000 to buy a ring, up to they get to choose a ring up to $5,000, and production will pay for it. I think that's different. I feel like in past seasons it was like 1,000 or 2,000. That's just off the top of my head. But anyway, so the ring, like with the Seattle season 4, when what's his name? I can't remember. The guy that I like, him, he wanted the ring back and she wouldn't give it back. So, okay, if Casey knows that he didn't spend money on the ring, then you could imagine Casey saying like, well, you didn't pay for this ring, so it doesn't really matter. And you could see Casey thinking, you're not going to use the ring. You're not going to wear the ring. But why would she wear an engagement ring? Engagement rings look a certain way, and you wouldn't no one would casually, unless you were going to keep it as a keepsake. But even then, if he's asking for it, I don't understand why they just don't give it back. In season 4, I can't remember her name, but. Why not? Maybe if you're hard up for money and you're just like, actually, if I sell this, I could get $1,000, because reselling rings isn't very lucrative. So she's just like, well, I could get $1,000 off of this. Is that even a thing? Could that be a scam that cast members could pull? It's like, well, let's just act like we're going to get married, and then we can get a $5,000 ring that we can both sell and hawk. I don't know. Anyway, so. Is Patrick completely harmed by her not giving the ring back? No. I'm just trying to think what anyone would do with that ring. They should just give it back to the show or something, or give it to charity. A needy couple that can't afford that kind of thing. Because what's Patrick? It would just be a keepsake. It would just be something that they would. Well, I mean, maybe Patrick, I could sell that. I don't know. But yeah, why wouldn't you give it back? Now, I could imagine Casey thinking in a dysfunctional way, if I give it back to him, that means I have to see him, which means I have to feel ashamed, or I have to worry that I'm going to give in. You could imagine her thinking that if I see him, I'm going to crumble and I'll get back together with him, and I know myself, or, what, it doesn't make it normal or okay, but I just don't see, at the very least, when you're thinking about how it's going to look, why wouldn't you just give the ring back? Now, maybe she has after this point, but immediately, why would you not?
Oh, you act like you're the only one that's hurt in this situation. I'm going to keep the ring.
Oh my gosh.
And that was her last text, and we never talked since.
Fuck, dude. That's crazy.
And that phrasing, again, we don't know if that's what happened. We don't know if he's spinning it, but for her to say, you're acting like you're the only one hurt by this. What? Yeah. And I'm guessing today that she's saying, well, he didn't really love me, so it didn't matter anyway. Now, I think a lot of her behavior, so this is interesting. So at the Vile Files interview, she seemed to be unreasonable. She seemed to be, for a while in the interview, unwilling to just say, I messed things up. I should have broken up with him in person. I can't even remember if she really explicitly said that. At the very least, it was well into the interview, after having multiple instances where Nick had asked her flat out, "Do you regret anything?" And she didn't mention that. And that's a pretty easy thing to regret. I regret not breaking up with him during the breakup conversation. And it sounds like over text, because she's saying, "I don't even want to talk with you." So this is all over text. Imagine breaking up with your fiance over text and not even really breaking up. Just saying, "Well, just tell everyone that we're broken up," without telling him that you're what. It's almost like her brain went into like this panic mode where she's just like, I need to break up with him, but I can't break up with him because then that means I'll be seen as a racist and he'll have more of a complex about racism or something. And so I'm just going to put my head in the sand and I'm just going to text him and avoid the whole thing. Right? Yeah. Yeah. So when I saw that the Vial Files interview, it seemed to me that she was being unreasonable or lacking sorrow for the way she broke up with him. She shouldn't feel sorrow for breaking up with him. She's fine to break up with him. If she's not into him, she's not into him. But just, a little bit, not like tremendous sorrow, but embarrassment and a little bit of sorrow of just like, yeah, I probably should have broken up with him differently. She didn't have that seemingly in the interview. I interpreted that because in the past week prior to that interview on the Vial Files, I knew that she was being bullied by the mob and was, receiving death threats and all sorts of horrificness, right? That she's a horrible racist person, all this kind of stuff. And I was thinking that she was defensive coming into the interview because of that, and that might have shot her in the foot. But it sounds like right off the bat, before she was even experiencing any mob, she was already sticking her head in the sand. She was already not really appreciating the situation. She was already something. It's interesting because, well, then when we look back at her pod, I was giving her a lot of the benefit of the doubt in the pods, right? And I don't know, it's confusing because, I was saying that she has a lot of healthy honesty that can kind of bite her in the ass a little bit, and naivete. I don't know. It's an interesting case.
I just think what hurt me the most though, dude, is like, is within hours after the reveal, It's
right.
Like, it's like, dude, like you didn't even give it a day, like a night. If you give it one night, like I'd feel.
Okay, we're hearing what my contact said, that it was that day. So he's saying within hours after the reveal. So they have the reveal in the hallway. They do all their reveals in the hallway in the same day. And then he goes back to the hotel. She goes back to the hotel. Later that evening, that's when he is told that she doesn't want to continue being on the show. She doesn't break up with him, though.
A little bit better, but you gave it a couple hours to think you wanted to end this, and I'm just like, dude, that shit hurt.
Can't stand that.
Like,
No.
that shit hurt bad.
No.
So he's saying that shit hurt. That shit hurt bad. Given the way he presents, given our assumptions about men, it cannot land with us. We might not appreciate what he's trying to say to us, that this was devastating for him. Of course it would be. If she was going to break up with him, sooner the better, right? So most of that hurt that he's feeling is inevitable, right? Because what's she supposed to do? Wait a few days and then break up with him? And then when he learns that she really thought she should break up with him right after the reveal in the hallway, that can hurt even more because you feel like, wait, so that whole time while we were all lovey-dovey, you knew you didn't want to be with me? So usually when you know, and you want to inform the other person right away. So she did that. And that's going to hurt. That's going to be devastating to him. So, yeah, yeah, right. I would say most of the hurt that he's talking about was inevitable, right? All right, well, let's adjourn there. I want to remind you all that if you like what we're doing here on Psychology in Seattle, my dogs are barking, you can become a member of the YouTube channel. When you become a member, you are really making it so that I can do this stuff. That's a weird way of putting it. But also, you get access to dozens, if not hundreds, of member-exclusive episodes that I've made. You know, other channels will have like behind the scenes and this sort of stuff, which is fine. But, you know, I would say a fourth of my content, you know, my typical content on YouTube is only for members, because I want to reward those people who are literally giving me the ability to do this, giving me the time to do it. So yeah, if you want to and you can afford, that's great. Otherwise, no biggie. Take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.